Now at 6 and streaming on crossroadstoday.com, 24 years later, families find closure as new identifications from 9/11 bring answers.
A viral video cost a Texas State professor his job. What he said that crossed the line.
Plus, a Cuero cemetery is looking for a leader to preserve its history.
We had a little summer shower that rolled around the area. It came down 59, gave some rain to the Inez area. We even got some rain at the airport. We'll be talking about whether or not we're going to get any of that for the rest of the weekend. Coming up in a moment.
In Texas A&M women's soccer battled Texas Wesleyan earlier today at the Cave. We'll give you the full highlights and stats later on in sport.
You're watching 25 News now at 6. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Shauna Curry.
And I'm Don Brubaker.
We start with breaking news tonight, a developing story out of Maryland at the U.S. Naval Academy. Naval Support Activity Annapolis, in coordination with their local law enforcement, is currently responding to reports of an active shooter at the Naval Academy. The base is on lockdown. This is a developing situation, and we will provide updates on our website and in our newscasts as they become available. For the second day in a row, a 10-year-old is arrested at a Victoria Elementary School for making a false threat. Around 11:20 this morning, school resource officers at Vickers Elementary got word a 10-year-old student claimed he had a weapon on campus. Deputies searched the school and no weapon was ever found. The student later admitted he made it up as a joke. He was arrested for making a false report and taken to the Juvenile Detention Center.
At 9:28 this morning, the same time the second tower fell on September 11, 2001, Victoria Fire Department firefighters lowered the flag to half-staff and observed a moment of silence. They honored the 343 firefighters who gave their lives in the line of duty that day. Also this morning, the Victoria Police Department joined the Victoria Fire Department as they met at the flagpoles of their respective stations for a moment of silence. Golden Crescent Habitat for Humanity organized an event called Remember, Repair, Restore today, designed to support local veterans and first responders. It was at the Habitat Restore at 4103 North Navarro. The event featured demonstrations on furniture repair and refinishing, providing valuable skills for attendees. This event showed the organization's commitment to helping veterans through home repair programs funded by the Texas Veterans Commission.
It's like a little, I guess you could say a little holy day for me. This is our time to remember. It's not just, to me, my opinion is not so much as for the military people. This is for all our first responders.
These programs aim to help veterans maintain their homes. The event invited community members to come together in appreciation of the sacrifices made by veterans and first responders. Today marks 24 years since the deadly terror attacks of 9/11. Nearly 3,000 people lost their lives. The victims lived in New York, Washington, D.C., and 27 other states.
It's a moment in our nation's history that will never be forgotten. As Lee Waldman reports, part of that promise to never forget was to never stop working to identify the people killed that day.
The New York City Office of Chief Medical Examiner has been testing remains and using familial DNA to identify the victims who were killed. We spoke to one man whose family has a new sense of closure 24 years after his mother's death.
My mom was just a super woman who certainly should not have been murdered in that way.
It took nearly 24 years, but Paul Keating and his siblings have a new sense of closure after their mother, Barbara Keating's remains were identified. Barbara was on one of the planes hijacked by terrorists on 9/11.
They asked us for the DNA when they thought that there was a chance. They found hair in a hairbrush, and she was on the short list, obviously, from the plane.
Barbara's remains were identified along with two others last month, Ryan Fitzgerald and a woman whose family is choosing to withhold her name. It's a part of the ongoing efforts by the New York City Office of Chief Medical Examiner.
This office made a very solemn promise to the families of the victims who were lost on September 11th, 2001, to do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to identify their loved ones and return them to their families.
So far, the OCME has identified 1,653 remains from the September 11th attacks on the World Trade Center in 2001. These latest identifications came from outreach to families for DNA reference samples and analysis using the capabilities of the city's DNA lab. Keating says they're eternally grateful for the work done by the medical examiner's office to bring them closure.
It's amazing. And yes, they did it milligram by milligram. They're still at it.
Barbara, and the other two victims who were identified are the latest of the World Trade Center victims to be identified since 2024. Right now, there are still nearly 1,100 victims still unidentified. In New York, I'm Lee Waldman.
A local cemetery with graves dating back to the 1880s is in need of new leadership.
25 News Now weekend anchor Amaya Norman has the details. Amaya?
The Lockhart Cemetery Association is looking for someone to take the lead in maintaining a piece of Cuero's African American history. The Lockhart Community Cemetery sits on 3 acres along Lockhart Road in Cuero. It's the final resting place of 263 known individuals, many of them early African American settlers, veterans, sharecroppers, and formerly enslaved people. Some of the grave dates back to the 1880s. The cemetery is recognized with a Texas Historic Cemetery marker, but time and neglect have left the grounds in need of care. George McNary, a member of the Lockhart Cemetery Association, says the group is hoping to recruit someone local and passionate to lead a grassroots beautification and preservation efforts. The association is still looking for volunteers interested in leading the project. If anyone is interested, you can reach out to the Lockhart Cemetery Association at 281-743-4158. Shauna Dawn, back to you.
Amaya, thank you. The rain returned to the station this afternoon. Wonder how many of our viewers got some today.
Yeah, the heat did too.
Yep.
Let's go to Chief Meteorologist Mac Perez.
Yeah, in fact, we were at, I think, 92 degrees, then it dropped to 75 when that storm came in. Yes, here it is. It came right down 59. Look at this. And then it's over Inez, and it stopped right here at Navarro Street. It did not go south. And so Goliad did not get any rain. We just got it right there. So majority of it was right about here. Well, that's the return of the tropical moisture or the Gulf air that I told you about yesterday. It's here, and we're going to see this kind of pattern over the next few days as the humidity starts making it feel a little bit more like late summer. We'll be talking about that, taking a look at the tropics and your 7-day forecast. All that coming up in a moment. Back to you.
The FBI today releasing photos of a person of interest in connection to the shooting death of political activist Charlie Kirk. Authorities recovering a weapon and now asking for the public's help to find the suspected shooter.
The Utah Department of Public Safety says there are, quote, rapid developments in this investigation. ABC's Jacqueline Lee is at Utah Valley University in Orem, where the shooting happened.
New developments in the manhunt for the person suspected of gunning down 31-year-old Charlie Kirk. The FBI releasing these photos, asking for the public's help in identifying the person of interest. The FBI analyzing a bolt-action rifle. Officials in Utah say they discovered in the woods, believed to be used in connection with the shooting. They're looking for any possible DNA or fingerprints. Multiple law enforcement sources telling ABC News it was wrapped in a towel, with a spent cartridge still chambered and 3 unspent containing what law enforcement officials describe as transgender and anti-fascist writings. Law enforcement has not explained what that means or whether those markings were meant to misdirect investigators. Authorities combing through video from the scene, including this one, which appears to show a person on the roof, according to sources familiar with the ongoing investigation.
After the shooting, we were able to track his movements as he moved to the other side of the building, jumped off of the building, and fled off of the campus and into a neighborhood.
Kirk was shot and killed during an event at Utah Valley University Wednesday.
I was 15 feet away, and it was really hard to witness. As the guy said shooting or shooters or something like that, you just hear the gunshot and I'm sorry.
Kirk founded the conservative youth organization Turning Point USA, a memorial growing outside their Phoenix headquarters. There was controversy over many of his viewpoints and comments, including about the LGBTQ+ community, single women, and Jewish people. President Trump today saying he will be awarding Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
I have no doubt that Charlie's voice and the courage he put into the hearts of countless people, especially young people, will live on.
A source confirming to ABC News that Vice President J.D. Vance will be meeting with Kirk's family here in Utah before taking his casket on board Air Force Two back home to Phoenix. Jacqueline Lee, ABC News, Orem, Utah.
A Texas State University professor is out of a job after a video surfaced online. The clip from a revolutionary socialism conference shows history professor Thomas Alter calling the federal government bloodthirsty and profit-driven, and allegedly pushing for it to be overthrown. Chancellor Brian McCall and President Kelly Damphouse both released statements saying calls to incite violence have no place on campus. They called Alter's behavior serious misconduct and said his firing was effective immediately. Alter's firing comes just a day after a Texas A&M professor was also let go following a viral video of a student confronting her over gender identity content in a children's literature class. Texas's solar program is left in limbo after the Trump administration pulls the plug on a $250 million grant. To read this full Texas Tribune article, come to crossroadstoday.com.
The cost of owning a home in Texas is climbing. A new U.S. Census Bureau report shows Texas homeowners saw their property tax bills drop 6.6% in 2024. That's the biggest one-year decline in years. Still, the typical homeowner spent more than 22% of their income on housing costs like insurance and utilities. Renters are seeing some relief. The report finds tenants in Victoria paid less in rent last year than they did back in 2019.
The U.S. is getting hit with an economic double whammy. While the cost of living in the U.S. keeps climbing, finding a job is getting more difficult. Consumer prices inched upward 0.4 of a point last month, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That pushed the annual inflation rate to 2.9%. Economists say the Trump administration's tariffs are a main factor in the increase. Meanwhile, first-time applications for unemployment benefits last week hit a high not seen since October 2021. Analysts say many companies have eased up on hiring in recent months, hinting that the country's labor market is on shaky ground. And here's our viewer poll tonight. Which price increase have you noticed the most this past year? And this has gone up even more from our 5 p.m. newscast. Groceries at 91%. That definitely, you feel that every single week when you go and you buy your groceries at the grocery store. But we're also seeing housing and rent, interestingly enough, is the only one that no one has seen an increase in. We want to hear from you. Come to crossroadstoday.com/vote to let us know, and we'll have another look at 10. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Crossroads Today. Hit the like button and click the notification bell. Stay with us. Coming up on 25 News Now at 6, the attempted assassination trial begins. Why the man accused of targeting Donald Trump lost his opening statement.
Also had a diplomatic shakeup in London. How emails and recent revelations led to a top British diplomat's resignation just days before President Trump's visit. Of the man on trial for trying to assassinate President Trump in September of last year was cut short today after he veered off topic. U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon warned the defendant Ryan Ruth, who is representing himself, to restrict his comments to the case, even asking the jurors to leave the courtroom twice so she could speak with Ruth privately. Ruth pleaded not guilty to 5 federal charges. If convicted, he faces a maximum sentence of life in prison. The UK appointed James Roscoe as its interim ambassador to the U.S. This after Peter Mandelson was fired from the post over links to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Bloomberg published a series of emails Mandelson sent to Epstein offering his support even after Epstein was convicted on Florida state prostitution charges in 2008.
Mandelson's firing comes just days before the UK is set to welcome U.S. President Donald Trump with a state visit. Observers say that visit could be a bit tricky because the president is embroiled in his own controversy over links to Epstein. Claire Sebastian has more.
Well, we'd seen days of mounting criticism of Mandelson's relationship with Epstein leading up to this decision after a series of revelations this week. First, the documents released by the House Oversight Committee on Monday contained a 2003 letter from Mandelson as part of a birthday book describing Epstein as, quote, my best pal. But the clinching factor was the emails obtained in a Bloomberg investigation released on Wednesday, revealing that Mandelson showed support for Epstein after he pleaded guilty for soliciting prostitution from a minor in 2008. I think the world of you, and I feel hopeless and furious about what has happened, Mandelson wrote in one of those emails. Now, the British Foreign Office said in a statement on Thursday, the emails show the depth and extent of Peter Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein is materially different from that known at the time of his appointment. Now, the strong sense is that Mandelson had hoped to keep his job despite this. He did not heed calls to resign, and in a long interview on a British podcast on Wednesday, Mandelson clearly tried to get ahead of this, saying he deeply regretted his relationship with Epstein.
I regret very much that I fell for his lies. I fell and accepted assurances that he had given me about his indictment, his original criminal case in Florida. Like very many people, I took at face value what he said.
But it wasn't enough. Just 7 months in, he's now leaving arguably the most consequential posting in the British diplomatic service. It's the third time in his long and turbulent political career that he's had to leave a post over a scandal, and it comes at a delicate moment for the US-UK relationship. President Trump himself under scrutiny for his past relationship with Epstein, something he calls a dead issue, is expected here in the UK in just 6 days' time on a state visit. It's part of a major effort by the British Prime Minister to cement ties with the Trump administration, and one that he won't want overshadowed. Claire Sebastian, CNN, London.
More than 300 South Koreans detained in Georgia by U.S. immigration authorities are on their way back to South Korea. A chartered flight to repatriate them took off from Atlanta's airport today. They were detained at a Hyundai plant in Ellabelle last Thursday. They're expected to arrive in Seoul on Friday after the roughly 15-hour return flight.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. A fairly nice afternoon. We had a nice thunder shower that sort of surprised everybody, but that was that Gulf moisture I kept promising you all week that rolled back in. Our temperature now is at 86. We actually cooled to about 76 during the storm, and we managed to get, well, this says 3,600, but I believe it was about a half inch, about 52 hundredths of an inch of rain at the airport. So good half inch, but where did it go? It just fell apart. We'll be talking about football and weekend weather coming up after this. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Yes, we talked about football. Tomorrow night, we got the Yoakum Bulldogs and the Cuero Gobblers at Gobbler Stadium in Cuero. Looking for the forecast, warm and mostly sunny. Now, there'll be clouds in the middle part of the day, and the clouds will decrease once the sun starts going down, so that by evening it should be okay. We're looking at a little bit stronger of a southeast wind, and that I don't think it's going to be strong enough to, blow any field goals off the wrong way, but it'll be breezier up in the stands. Well, we had that moisture roll back in just like we promised you the last couple of days. That Gulf moisture was just enough to trigger off that one thunder shower that came right through Highway 59. We take a look at the big picture, and, it's, let's see. They had fall weather in the east. Now they're going to be warming up a bit, but there's another front coming through. So the beginning of the fall season is really getting going up there. The Pacific Northwest, this is very important to anybody who worries about the western fire season, and we should all worry about it. This is an early storm coming in with rain and snow already at the higher elevations, and so this is a good sign that even though we're still in early September, we are getting the systems now moving into the next season. Here's Highway 59. You can see how the storm comes right down the road, gets right to Inez, and just stops right at the airport. Actually, it made it to Navarro Street, so and that's it. It just fell apart very quickly. Kind of the situation that we'll see over the weekend, and here is a good example of how much rain we actually got. So we got a little bit right there through Edna, all the way to Inez, and that's Vanderbilt. So they got some shower activity there, but we didn't get much in the city, and certainly it didn't get all the way to Raisin, that's for sure. All right, we'll take a look at what's going on, and tomorrow you're going to feel the humidity because in the afternoon it'll be up to about the 50-60%, especially down here along the coast. So increasing moisture and more clouds, and yes, one or two little isolated showers like that. Overnights, the humidity will be a little bit deeper because we may even have some fog in the next couple of days. I want to thank my viewer here, Clifford Maxagemba, who sent a picture of his feeder and his little Hummer that came by to visit, and we've got something going here. This is the fall migration of the hummingbirds from North America all the way to Central America, and it's really nice if we leave them some food because they got a long trip ahead of them, so they need all the nutrition they can get. So let's take a look at the Atlantic. There is one system that has a potential to develop way out here. Excuse me. And that's not going to be much of a problem. Right about here is where we're likely to get a fairly big hurricane developing right off the coast of Mexico. Question is, if it stays offshore, no problem. If it gets onshore, it'll be a real problem because it should get up to hurricane strength. So let's take a look at your temperatures for tomorrow morning. We're getting down to about 72. So, a little cool, but not as cool as it was earlier in the week. But I think you'll still enjoy it. Lots of sunshine early in the morning to get out there. And the sunshine will get us up to the 95 range. You'll also see quite a bit of cloud cover as we continue to pick up that southeast wind and all that Gulf air. Getting up to 93 in Port Lavaca with abundant sun. Getting up to a high of 95 in Cuero with abundant sunshine. And if you got any plans for the weekend, it's looking pretty good. Lots of sun. Temperatures in the mid-90s all the way through. That's your 7-day forecast. Reminding everybody we do have a QR code. Love for you to scan it. Put Crossroads Today on your phone. Shauna, over to you.
All right, thank you, Mac. Now we send it over to Max Williams for tonight's sports.
That's right, Shauna. After the break, we're going to highlight who this week's Athlete of the Week will be. I'll tell you that next in sports. Tonight's Athlete of the Week, we're handing it to another Victoria West football player, Aiden De Leon. Here's more for our Athlete of the Week. This week's Athlete of the Week, we're handing it to Victoria West wide receiver Aiden De Leon. Aiden hauled in 2 touchdown grabs and 139 receiving yards. He highlights his connection with quarterback Nolan Boyce so far.
Practice, Tuesdays we have a thing that we do quarterback and receivers only, so getting our timing down on routes. I think the first one was a fade, like outside fade, so it was good. He got the ball out quick.
One of the main reasons why Aiden's got more reception this season is with the injury from top target Jarrett Swanson from last year. He highlights how he needed to step up to help out the Warriors this year, getting massive plays on the field.
Step up, when the situation happened, Coach Thomas came up to me, called me and said that, everything can still be done. I just have to step up. Jarrett was on me the whole game, telling me just keep her head up, keep the offense going. So
his journey for football didn't start until he played at Cade Middle School. He describes how his time was playing at Cade and what position he played before wide receiver.
Actually, my dad didn't let me, so I started playing in middle school. So 7th grade year was my first year at Cade, and played quarterback 6th, 7th, and 8th, 9th grade, and then high school when I made varsity. I actually moved to receiver.
That switch going into wide receiver into high school worked for Aiden, as we know, and he appreciates how head coach Courtney Boyce's guidance and what he's told him to become a leader.
Being like somebody that's going to step up when you need to, being a dog, really, being able to move on to the next play.
Aiden hopes to bring that same mentality to their matchup tomorrow night versus San Antonio's Sam Houston Hurricanes. We'll see if West can get the job done, improve to 3-0. Congrats to Aiden De Leon for being this week's Athlete of the Week. Congrats there to Aiden for being our Athlete of the Week, but let's check out this week's fishing report where the weather looks very nice here this weekend. So around Coleto Creek, the water is still slow at 91 degrees, but bass fishing is slowing down because of that. But if you still want to get catches around Coleto Creek, you can get them with the soft plastics in that 6 to 12 feet of water area. Then around East Matagorda Bay, it's been excellent the past 2 weeks, and now it's at 88 degrees with the winds being very light around that area around Matagorda Bay, and lots of trout and redfish have been caught around recently. And in Port O'Connor is good at 85 degrees. The peckerel trout are put biting in the surf with live croaker baits. Now, finally, Texas A&M Victoria women's soccer team was back home earlier today versus Texas Wesleyan, and the Jags would take care of business, winning 5-0. And guess what? They got all their scores before I got there. I just got a couple of highlights that were there before, but they still got some big production out there from Alani Garcia. She had 2 goals there, and then Jessica Sackheld and Aranza Alva and Caitlin McCarthy all helped out, having 1 goal apiece to help out get the 5-0 win for the Lady Jags. They improved now to 2-1-1 overall, and they'll be back in action versus Concordia, Texas this Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. Now you're wondering how about the men's soccer game. That game actually got delayed there with early rain showers and just started up around 5 o'clock. Last I checked, the score is 2-0 there. Texas A&M Victoria men's soccer team is leading Texas was, and we'll give you the final score and the updated stats for 25 News Now Sports at 10 p.m. And that's going to do it here in sports. Don, Shauna, back to you.
Max, thank you. We're back in a moment. Find out why a North Carolina corn maze is reopening in a few days. And finally tonight, the Cold Mountain Corn Maze in North Carolina returns with proceeds benefiting the Broyhill Children's Home. The Corn Maze has winding turns and a design reflecting this year's theme. This year's theme is Sharing Hope, Changing Lives. Opening day is Saturday, September 20th. Russell Skipper and his late wife started the maze in 2005. It's an annual tradition to open the corn maze to help a charity. One time I was in a corn maze with our youngest grandson, and he was looking for me and going, hey, he's a, hey, you know, the corn wasn't that high. But it was really fun, and we had a blast. Now we don't have a problem with that because he's 6 foot tall.
Well, just follow him.
That's right.
That'll help.
I used to drive a tractor with my uncles. I could never do a straight line, much less anything like that. It's amazing how they do all that. Well, folks, we do have some warm weather. It's kind of summer-like weather, mid-90s right on through the weekend, and 1 or 2 little garden variety showers, kind of like the one we had today. I hope it didn't bother you. It was nice to get the temperature down from 95 to 75 in about an hour.
Oh, yeah, bring it on if that's the way.
Hopefully by the time the corn maze is open around here, it'll be a little bit cooler.
I hope so.
We'll see.
All right, thank you, Meg. Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you back here tonight for 25 News Now at 10.